I'm a coral reef ecologist from Kenya. I head up a global science body on biodiversity and ecosystem services. So I have seen the daily grind of a fisherman in a dugout canoe. And I've also seen the tsunami of greenhouse gases that are driving coral reefs to their tipping point as we speak. So what I want to talk to you today about is reconnecting people with nature. Now, the personal level is very important, but my mission is more about the systems change that we need to have. So we, all people, are a part of nature. Who doesn't feel the awe of spectacles of nature? Of wildebeest massing in the Masai Mara, or a ball of fish suspended in mid-water, or the serenity and majesty of a mountain, the ocean, or a desert scape. But we humans, we have a terrible flaw, and that is our ability to bend this planet to our will. And some have taken so much out of nature that we're literally taking the life out of it. And we have to learn how to unsqueeze, how to nurture nature back to health as if our lives depend on it, because of course they do. Now, like all species, humans depend on nature for our material needs: food, water, shelter, our ecological niche. Many species alter their surroundings, but unique to us is the scale to which we have grown our niche into economies. Now, the word economy comes from ancient Greek, combining words for managing a household or home. But as economies have grown, many cultures invented money and markets to facilitate larger and larger exchanges. And now we have economies of mass production, maximizing food, guzzling water and fuel, transforming shelter into infrastructure and megacities. Now our economies have grown so big into gargantuan giants that feed voraciously, no longer mediating our physical needs from nature, instead just prioritizing reproducing more money. Economy and finance have grown out of balance with the nature and society that spawned them. Now, this imbalance is shown in many indicators on the state of nature. These are familiar to many of you, I'm sure. So extinction of species, declining populations, planetary boundaries breached. But most people, increasingly disconnected from nature, have not responded to these. And I wonder if other indicators may connect better. Indicators of this imbalance that show a planet dominated by humans. So think of this. We are one species, a mammal. The mammals that we eat or that we domesticate number about 20 species, and there are 6,500 wild mammal species in the ocean and on land. Now, what do you think is the relationship between these three groups? Now, we and the mammals we eat comprise 95% of the biomass of all animals, of all mammals on this planet. How about birds? Chickens that we eat, again, are one out of 11,000 bird species, yet they comprise 2/3 of the weight of all birds on the planet. Or think about the material stuff that we construct, the buildings, roads, planes, plastics, the paraphernalia of our 21st century ecological niche on steroids. We have built about the same amount of material stuff as the total weight of the biosphere of living nature. Now just think, our biosphere, thin as the skin of an apple encircling our planet, hurtling through space, it took about 100 million years to stabilize to what it was when we came along. And now in just 100 years, we have posed a challenge to life itself, just like humanity's battles with the gods in ancient mythologies. In whose favor do you think the outcome will unfold? We cannot continue an economic system based on short-term gain and infinite consumption on a finite planet, now at its limits. But we do have solutions, and mine to bring to you today is actually a well-worn framework or a narrative that's updated with new evidence and knowledge to really fulfill its full potential. Understood fully, I think this can help reconnect us with nature. And its power is in its simplicity. So nature is a foundation, that's a given, and embraces all. our cultures and the societal values that define us in so many different and beautiful ways around the planet. And then in between these, and that's important, between the two lies economy. And then related to these are all the interactions that define our lives, the direct uses we have of nature, the benefits these provide to society, the indirect and direct drivers that impact on nature itself. What is beautifully simple is that all these stocks and flows must balance across all scales, where each of you live connected to the whole planet. This simple model gives every person agency to act in the space in which they live. So if it is indeed the economy, stupid, as somebody once famously said, what do we need to do? Well, we need coherent actions across all three domains, nature, economy, and society. And I'll just give some highlights of these. So first, on nature, as the foundation, we need to prevent further loss. We need to invest in restoration, rewilding, and regeneration, as well as ecosystem services to supply the needs of people, particularly in vulnerable locations. But fundamentally, we need all those who extract from nature our material needs, so wheat, timber, fish, food, beef. We need them to bring their actions to be in balance with nature. Governments and producers can work together to incentivize the right actions and outcomes. And then we also need to transform demand from consumers, such as in adopting healthy foods that are produced sustainably across the planet. Then on economic actors, companies and businesses, we need to transition to non-polluting, sustainable technologies across all economies, particularly in those in low-income and emerging economies. There are now over 9,000 public benefit, or B corporations, who are shifting their production, profit, and ownership models to be more in balance with nature and society. And then sustainability, disclosure, and science-based standards are rapidly being developed and applied in order to bring nature onto the balance sheet. Business must revolutionize so these become the norm rather than the exception. And then finally, in society, two elephants in the room. First, the narrative of global population growth, whereas it's the material footprints of the wealthiest people and the wealthiest economies that have driven nature's decline to date, here illustrated for carbon dioxide emissions and food. We need to lift the lowest incomes, for sure, but equality and sustainability also require that we need to limit the excesses of the highest incomes to create space for a good quality of life for all. And then second, on finance. And this is not about just taxation or regulations or increasing costs. It's about changing how and why we make money. Now, 10 to 25% of the annual production, global annual production, can be transformed to generate synergies and co-benefits across sectors and with nature, instead of trade-offs and impacts, as currently happens. And then there's about $300 trillion of financial assets, which, long story short, my framing suggests has been over-extracted from nature in the past. Reinvesting just a portion of this back into nature in every square kilometer, every square mile on the planet will rebuild the natural capital that supports our economies and all of society. So it's really quite simple. This framework helps show how economy can work with nature and society to return to a balance between the three and reconnect people with nature. Many different solutions can be integrated, old and new, but what is really needed is collective action from everybody. But those with the most must first step forward to build trust. We only have one planet. We've shown we have the power to change it. Let's now show that we have the wisdom, love, and care to change it towards the right outcomes. The time to act does have to be now. Thank you.